Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Rocket Lab Weekly. We are up to episode 56, straight weeks of doing Rocket Lab Weekly. It's incredible.
Awesome.
We have today Matt Money with us. All his descriptions are in the description box below. And yeah, if you're watching on Matt's channel, hi, my name is Vince. Please subscribe. Matt, how was your week?
Good. As always, appreciate you having me on as a co-host. And yes, Vince's description for people watching on my channel. Vince's description and material is in the comment section down below. Not comment section, the description box down below. So be sure to do that. But overall, great week, man. Got a lot of work done. So the 9 to 5 work was good. And then I've been watching the stock price for RKLB, Palantir, and a couple other companies. And it's just been a good week, man. Moving a lot of things around to kind of get myself prepared. And people will go through this, right? And then I want just like a little bit, 30-second minute, maybe monologue. People will go where like your portfolio matures, and you're probably experiencing this a little bit right now with how much success you've been having, where you're sitting there like, okay, where I was and how I was making moves was great for having a 5-figure portfolio or $100,000 portfolio. But now I'm here and I need to think about how I'm going to form this as a foundation for the things we're going to build on top. And so that's where I'm really looking forward to is, basically it's going really quickly. I mean, a couple of years ago, I wouldn't even been talking about a 6-figure portfolio. And then, 2 years ago, I wouldn't even be talking about a 7-figure portfolio. And here I am now, trying to get myself ready for an 8-figure portfolio, right? I mean, I'm not there yet, and I'm still a long way and a lot of work and a lot of things to do. But you have to think about how you're going to get there before you actually get there, and you have to use that million mindset. Like, and a lot of people talk about this a good bit. It's like before you become a millionaire, you have to be a millionaire in your mind, right? And the best thing that Jim Rome ever said, if anybody listens to personal development coaches or anything like that, in order to become a millionaire, best become a millionaire quickly. Otherwise, the money will soon go away. And what he means by that is like you truly need to be thinking in the right mindset. Because if you're like, I got $1 million, I'm going to go buy a car, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy that, I'm going to buy the other. Next thing you know, that $1 million is gone. You're sitting there saying, oh, shit. Like, you know what I mean? Versus you and me, we kind of have that millionaire mindset. We're saving, we're looking towards the future. And yeah, we're able to upgrade our lives a little bit here and there. I go to Mexico with Tevis every once in a while and, have a little bit of fun and, stuff that I normally wouldn't have done a couple of years back. But at the same time, you have to prepare yourself going forward. And so that's what this week and the past several weeks have kind of been like for me. So excited to be here and chat about one of my favorite things, which is RKLB.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I have had similar, but in a different way. So my portfolio has been insanely successful, like way more than I ever thought that it would be. I mean, my starting portfolio was 120,000 in 2022. I actually crossed 400,000 on Friday. And if I didn't have my stupid freaking cover calls that I hate right now, my portfolio would be something like 700,000. And what it has done for me, I know that some people are going to give me hate because I haven't pulled any money back from the portfolio, and I'm not planning to, in a way. But basically, because I have the covered calls. No, I don't want to talk about this. I will do a segment when I talk about this. But yeah, so I have to basically save my cover calls. I'm pretty sure that I can save them, especially on Rocket Lab. Palantir is not looking so good unless there's a crash in the stock, but the stock is just way too bullish. So I might have to pay to get rid of those cover calls, which would increase my cost basis, but it's still good. It's still good return on that money.
Awesome.
Cool. So this week, Rocket Lab guys crossed $12 and thereby 6 billion in freaking market cap. So just to react on that news, I mean, for me, it was like one, surreal. Number two is that the short float of the stock. I just want to show it. I heard it in the latest interview with Sir Peter Beck. probably cannot see this number here. Let me see if I can zoom in. This is the short float. So 20% of the float of Rocket Lab is shorted, which basically the only thing that it means that if we get a major move up, you can get this short squeeze. So there is still, you don't even see my screen. My God. Okay, whatever. You just,
I'm looking at a customer data maturity guide.
No. I was looking at what I was sharing, and then it was not really sharing. So here we go. Short float, you can see 20%. So basically what this means is if we would get a major up move, you could still get a short squeeze. So I think that there is a lot of juice upwards left in the stock, but we also haven't had a pullback in a very long time. So it's just very, very interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we close out this year over 15 and below 10. I don't know. It's I'm not good at short-term predictions. What about you, Matt?
I don't know. End of the year, I'm still very over the moon. No pun intended there. That we're over $12. You know, I honestly, you know, and I think maybe I was being, because when I give these price forecasts, I want to make sure I hit them, right? I don't really give aspirational shit, you know? And that's why, you know, I have $150 to $250 billion market cap valuation floating in my head, not for this year, right? But eventually, but I have yet to really like say timeline as to when, right? Because I want to see some of this risk be, but I think speaking of the risk piece, and we'll probably talk about it when we get to Maddie's interview, which was phenomenal, by the way. She did a phenomenal job with that, and we can talk about it more when we get to it. But a lot of the risk specifically around Neutron has been, I don't want to say debuffed, you know, or has been really realized. You know, they've gotten past it and they've mitigated those issues, and they're really getting to the small integration pieces, which obviously there is still anyway. So getting to that, there's line of sight to Neutron is what I'm trying to say. And I think people are starting to recognize that. But the thing that is interesting is the short float, and we're increasing as we almost are increasing in share price. So it means that people honestly are hoping for some massive pullback, or maybe some issues with the broader space industry as a whole. You know, and it seems like everyone's been very bullish as of late, which has obviously drove the price of ASTS and Rocket Lab. But I just don't understand what would cause a massive pullback, right? The pendulum has swung. Yes, it could swing back a little bit, but I don't see us getting back to $5 or $6. You see what I'm saying? Like I could see us get back to 8 or 9 because yes, we've run up so massively and you need to have some sort of retracement. I get that. And I feel that, but I don't know. But for an end of the year target, I honestly wasn't expecting to go above 11 or $12, but here we are. I guess it all depends. If we somehow knock out, this is something that could come out of left field or might not play out at all. And I feel like it's probably going to be the latter, is if we're somehow able to knock out the 6 or 7 launches that were supposed to happen within the fourth quarter in the next 2 months, right? It's like November 4th, November 11th. That's like once a week. And we're able to knock it out, then I could easily see this company getting to 20. But I think that at the moment, with what's happened and people pushing back, and let's just be honest, historically, the holidays are times for people to be like, January sounds pretty good, right? So you end up, you know what I mean? Like, I know I say that all the time. I'm like, I don't need to get that done in November, December, right? Like, I can do it in January. So I feel that. So I don't know. I'm I could see it kind of going both ways, but I don't know. Where do I see it?
Yeah, you bring up a very interesting point. So we can start with this. So finally, we got a new launch date for the next launch, which is the 4th of November. This is for the unnamed customer, unnamed payload. And again, this quarter, we were supposed to do between 4 to 7 launches, which would lead us to highest ever launches, this year, which is already like the 7 number was already a disappointment compared to the originally forecasted up to 20, was it 21 or 22 launches this year. And then we got some other news. I want to take it in one go, and then yeah, we take the very interesting news that I want to give. So Space Talks tweeted some good and bad news about LOXSAT Rocket Lab. The good news, the LOXSAT payload is complete, and the payload has officially rolled out to Kennedy Space Center, where it will undergo environmental testing. The bad news is the entire payload will be sent to New Zealand for launch in late 2025. So that's crazy to me, that you can have a spacecraft basically ready to go, and then it takes like 1 year to launch that. Then here on the bright side, Black Sky, who is a Rocket Lab customer, confirmed in their FCC filing that their window for the upcoming Electron launch opens at November 4th. So that means that basically we have this unnamed customer, we have Black Sky, we have 2 HASTE launches that we know about, which are probably going to happen. This would put us at 11 launches for the year, if I'm calculating correctly, because we had 4, 4, 3, right? And then this would be 4. And that is just matching last year. And Mr. Tim posted a really interesting tweet that I wholeheartedly agree with. By the way, I just want to give a shout out to both Fool's Gold and Call Me Curtis for their super chats. You guys are
they're subsidizing really my mortgage. Otherwise, I'd be under a bridge somewhere. Yeah,
exactly. You guys are amazing. So here we go. So Tim tweeted that this Rocket Lab quarter will be very interesting because likely Rocket Lab is not on track for the guided 15 to 18 Electron launches per year. The new bulls who don't fully understand the company and traders would sell the stock based on the missed guidance headlines that may or may not come with an interesting opportunity to add on the dip for the OGs. The OGs, everyone who was in for the run-up, no Electron is largely irrelevant at this point to the overall thesis due to that it's a small niche market with only an 8.5 million ASP. And I kind of share his viewpoint that we're probably going to have a very good setup for Q1 because we have a lot of launches slip over. And we're probably going to have a quite bad Q4 with, you know, very disappointing numbers with the Electron. And if that would cause a sell-off, that might be the dip that all of us OGs are waiting for to add. Curious, Matt, if you share this viewpoint.
It is interesting. I mean, yeah, I hope maybe we'll get some more clarity and it'll give me more trust. I mean, not that I have the utmost trust in Adam and Peter when they say something, and we'll hear more about some of that likely when we talk about the Maddie interview. But to me, they've been guiding for the 15 to 18, and I think something has happened over the past 2 to 3 weeks since we've really had direct communications with the guys, you know what I mean? And I think that likely has slipped. I think you're right. I mean, it's going to be very difficult to be able to execute 7 or so launches, even to the extent of 4 launches between now and the end of the year. The thing is, I mean, we have the one on the November 4th. So really we're looking for additional cadence towards the end of the year. And we know that they can launch rockets, you know, within 3 days of each other. We've seen it happen, but we haven't seen it consistently, right? We end up seeing, you know, 1 or 2 launches, and then it generally goes quiet for a month, maybe a month and a half, and then we have a couple you know what I mean? Like, we've gotten to that place where we haven't gotten to is steady once a week or every other week sort of cadences. And I would like to hear a little bit more descriptiveness because I still feel like there's work to be done, whether that's at the partnership level or whether that's at the rocket ship level, to make sure that these rockets go off on a regular cadence. And I know at the moment, they're not necessarily focusing so much on this because they know that 2026 and 2027 with respect to Neutron is really going to be game time. And I know that they're really trying to focus on the space systems business at the moment and continue to grow that. But I still think that this is going to be a good revenue stream for the company going forward. And I don't want it to be, it's going to sound bad. I don't want them to neglect it because right now it is a crown jewel of the company. The crown jewel will eventually be Neutron. But this is also going to be something where, in my opinion, you still have the haste missions to kind of be filled out, and you still have a lot of other things that Electron could be used for that Neutron might not be able to keep. So anyway, I do want to get back to the $8.5 million ASP or average sales price when we get to the Maddie interview. So be sure to hold me accountable to that.
All right. So that was a good segue because I chose two segments that I want to show here and we want to react to. So people who didn't see Markets with Maddie, I forgot her name. Markets with Madison. Oh my God, what happened to me? Having a Joe Biden moment here. She has done interviews with Peter Beck and Rocket Lab before. She's a reporter from New Zealand. And she just came out with a new interview with Peter Beck. And that's part one of the interview. A fantastic interview. And I believe Friday, again, part two is going to drop where they're going to tour Wallops. There was two segments here that I think we should watch together because it has implications for Rocket Lab. Matt, I need you to yell if I have no sound when I start this. So here we go. 3, 2, 1.
I'm yelling.
Oh my God. Okay. So stop sharing. Let's see if this fixes it.
Sorry for yelling, everyone.
It just totally ruined my ear.
I ruined everybody's life. Is there a way to charge me? I know there's the super chats. Is there like a super mats? I don't know. Let me know if anybody knows.
Okay, so test again. You have to yell if there's no sound.
You know, these projects are just massive infrastructure projects.
So if you look at everything that's still yet to be done until you can actually assemble all the parts for Neutron, what is the most difficult and the sort of most precarious still to come?
Well, I'd say all of the really big high risk items we've kind of brought down. I mean, you can break a rocket program into kind of three things. One is infrastructure, which we talked about. One is propulsion, and the other is structures or tanks. And propulsion, we took a relatively different. Well, we took quite a different path with propulsion, for example. Normally, you develop elements of an engine, and you put them on an engine test stand, and you test like a thrust chamber or a combustion chamber, and then you might test elements of a pump, elements of a valve, and then years later you bring them together, and then years later from that you actually put it on a production line and produce it. We didn't take that approach. I mean, we've built 500 something engines. We kind of know what we're doing these days. So we built the production line for that engine. Everything that that first engine that went on the stand, there was just no flight, no industrial articles on there. It was all flight, whether it be wiring looms, engine controllers, valves, everything, pumps. It was built on a production line by production technicians, and that is the engine that we intend to fly. And that is an approach. It's a little bit risky in the fact that if that engine had a fundamental issue or performed very badly, then the program would be behind. But on the flip side to that, now we're banging engines out of a production line, so the program, at least on the propulsion side, is now ahead. So it swings and roundabouts in that.
So this was the part. Also, you mentioned this. I'm not sure how much we appreciate the balls and the risk taking that it took. That they actually built out a full production line for an unknown new engine instead of doing it the traditional way of testing each part and then years later putting it together. And I think that this just shows the genius of Peter Beck, that he's able to Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if it's craziness or it was a gamble or he's just that much of a genius that he knew that the rocket would work. But this super significantly cuts down the time and the cost of the Neutron program. And based on everything that he's saying, they seem to be like, yes, there is a delay, but now all the unknowns are known and there is like the easy parts left. So I just wanted to also hear your take, Mr. Matt, on this.
No, 100%. I mean, I don't think it was necessarily stupidity or cockiness or anything of the like. I think he recognized that they've been building, and he said it in the interview, 500 or so engines for specifically the Rutherford. They built the Curie engine. They've built multiple engines and been able to do it at this point. So they know how to do it, maybe not to the scale of an Archimedes, which obviously has way more lift capacity than a Rutherford engine. But at the same time, I think that they know what they're doing. It's not their first rodeo. And it was a gamble, yeah, but I'm sure they put like a likelihood of, different part failures and things of the like. And they said, okay, well, we have a 90% chance of success. If we succeed, we'll be able to get to pad this much sooner. If we don't succeed, maybe we'll do X, Y, or Z, and it'll delay us by a normal amount of time for a normal rocket launch. Because these guys are still on historic pace to be able to get a rocket into the air in quick time. So, I honestly heard that, and I didn't really think about it, but it makes sense that they put it on a production line first. So is that crazy? I don't think so. They know what they're doing. They've had hundreds of millions of dollars now of revenue come through, and they've launched 53 Electrons into space. So
just as a comparison, there was another company that built out a whole production line, a rocket factory, if you will, before they really reached cadence, and that company was Astra, and we all know what happened to them. They ran out of money, and
yeah, I mean they had built an entire rocket factory, not just an engine maker, but an entire rocket factory before they even had a successful So
definitely a risky move. So here's the next clip that I want to show. Hopefully there will be sound. There was one part that I just jokingly want to mention, that she asked, like, when is Rocket Lab going to pay a dividend? And I thought that is so funny because on every public forum, when Palantir investors can ask, it's always, when do you do share buybacks and when do you do dividends? It's like the most irrelevant question ever, but and then she chose to ask that question, but whatever. They obviously didn't get a straight answer. So here we go. Seriously, there's no sound?
It's like amateur hour with you, man. What are you doing?
But you see, it's like the same. I don't freaking get it.
You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. Yeah, I'm with Dave on this one. No dividends right now. Eventually, yes, right? When I'm sitting on a beach drinking Mai Tais in off the north coast of God knows where, yes, dividends. But for now, I'm not there yet.
Okay, so now I have to roll it back a little bit. Okay.
We've made a conscious decision to heavily invest in that product.
And in the meantime, you're also going to Mars to retrieve some samples for scientific purposes, just casually on the side.
Well,
Talk to me about that opportunity.
Let's be clear here. We are studying whether or not we can put together an architecture that NASA thinks is sufficiently viable to then go and do. So we're at the early stages of that program. So yes, we've been awarded a study contract from NASA to retrieve the samples that are sitting on the surface of Mars right now and bring them back home to Earth. And I think we're uniquely placed for that, because if you asked around the industry who's the best at the world at building a super small rockets for launching off planets, it's us. And then there's only 2 commercial companies that have re-entered a capsule and landed it safely back on Earth, and one of them is us. So these are like 2 core elements, like launching off another planet with a little rocket and bringing a little thing home and landing it safely. let alone some of the other technologies. And who's building Mars spacecraft right now?
You actually built 2 of them.
Yeah. So
not that they're yet to be flown yet. We're going to have to wait a year for that. But
well,
that's all right.
yeah. But the point being is, like, we have really critical key elements that enable that mission. So we think we're going to have a good crack at seeing if we can put something together and make that happen.
After this conversation, I don't think.
Yeah. So the reason why I chose this clip is because obviously the Mars sample return mission is rumored to be about a $2 billion contract, which would be absolutely insane for Rocket Lab. It would be the biggest contract that they have ever been awarded. And what I really liked about this is he basically said that they are the only ones that really have all the qualifications in, if you think about it, because it's true, like, you would think, as a knee-jerk reaction, yeah, like SpaceX is also in this race, but is SpaceX going to load a Falcon 9 into like a super heavy that goes to Mars, and then like that just doesn't work, right? Like, you actually need a small rocket for this. And yeah, they have done that. And then on top of it, they have, manufactured something in space with the Varda, and they returned it back to Earth. They have made Mars spacecraft. So it's like they have done a lot of the elements of this mission. So it would not be a very risky bet for NASA to go with them. So yeah, just curious to hear your thoughts on this, Mr. Matt.
Well, firstly, like, I don't want people to hear what I say next and think I don't appreciate Maddie for doing this, and I also don't appreciate the interview at all. But and I don't want this to sound cocky, because it's going to be, but the delivery and what we see in this interview is stuff that we already known, and it makes me feel good from a confidence perspective, because to have the forethought and being like, I'm going to trust this guy, this curly-headed founder Kiwi, back in 2021, when my buddy Cole was just like, check this company out, Vector Acquisition Group. It's a SPAC. They're going to buy Rocket Lab. I'm like, I've heard Rocket Lab before. I feel like these guys are actually doing something. Do a little bit of due diligence, and I'm like, this guy's on to something. And I'm like, I'm willing to take the risk and to believe and see where it is today and consistently here. It just makes me feel super good, and the fact that these guys have been able to continuously build on their success is why I'm a long-term shareholder, and I want to buy more stock. I bought more in the 11s, like last week or earlier this week. I don't remember. I bought some in the recent times when it was in the $11 range, and I don't care. Like, I'll continue to buy. I continue to look, and I'm like, you know what? I'm looking out there. What am I going to go buy? PepsiCo? Okay. Why would I do that when I can guarantee that in 5 to 10 years, this thing's going to be putting in rockets into space for $55 million a pop, and have a balling ass haste cadence, a balling ass electron cadence, and space systems that are doing whatever. And I think that there's more upside, right? The constellation piece we haven't talked about. There's the piece about the actual space system coming down, International Space Station in 2030. They said it's not really in their roadmap, but who knows? Things change. And then also you're seeing Boeing pulling out of space entirely, and I think that was rumored and everyone thought that. So as we asked, is there an opportunity for human capability spaceflight coming from Rocket Lab? Now could be the time. And it wasn't necessarily in the cards before when Boeing was a player and they had cards at the table. Now that they're folding, is it at the time for Rocket Lab to step up and be that second provider? But in terms of this, I mean, I think Maddie does a good job with the entirety of the interview. Yeah, I don't necessarily have any other words for it. It's she did a good job asking some hard-hitting questions overall.
Cool. All right, so that was all the Rocket Lab related news for the week. So now we can go into the space segment. And as you mentioned, it's like you're one step ahead of me all the time. So there is rumors now that Boeing is selling their Starliner business line. I have no clue who would want to buy it. I saw Blue Origin mentioned, but I feel like Blue Origin is like, you know, at one point you just have to like focus. They have like moon landers, space stations. If they would buy Starliner, then a human capsule, and yet they have not been to orbit, you know? So yeah, curious on your take, Matt. Yeah.
I guess they just have given enough time at this point for them to say, you know what, we got other things to worry about. We can barely keep planes in the air. Not trying to be mean there. I'm not, you know, I don't want, that sounds really mean, but I hope, you know, they take that with seriousness. You know, safety first. I mean, that's what every engineering organization should always be about. But yeah, I don't know. I think with the bad PR, they already have enough bad PR about the planes. Maybe they're going to wait for the total addressable market to get a little bit bigger, and then maybe they'll come back, you know. But for now, I think they should be allocating their resources to their main business. Once they're able to get their main business up and running, and they could be number one again at being an airplane maker, not number two, and a failing number two at that. I mean, Airbus is eating their lunch. So in that respect, you know, I can understand where they're coming from, but I think that this opens up opportunities for others that were previously thinking that that's occupied by Boeing, you know, and it might change the leadership thoughts at RKLB as well, you know. When we had asked Peter at the end of 2Q earnings last time, you know, what are your guys' thoughts about human spaceflight? He said there's already else players in the game, and now we're finding out that one of those players is dropping out. So we'll see what the potential has, and who else also changes their thoughts, right? Because I'm sure there's other folks out there that have aspirations to put people into space. But I think that this could bode well, and also might bode well for future Artemis missions as well. For those people that don't necessarily know, Artemis is the new Apollo missions that were happening throughout the NASA history. Artemis is going to start picking up, and basically what it is a test to go back to the moon, demonstrate the fact that these commercial spacecraft rather than these private spacecraft can go to the moon, if you don't understand and you're following what I'm saying. The Blue Origins of the world, the SpaceX of the world, etc. And once they get those to the moon, then they could say, okay, now we're prepared to be able to go to Mars with Artemis, and so that's going to be the piece that hopefully maybe RKLB could be a part of.
Yeah, we will see. We will see. Okay, so the next very interesting news is Boeing, out of all companies, the evil that we constantly speak about, built a communication satellite, and this satellite had a total loss in orbit on Monday, and they are investigating if the satellite crashed with a micrometeor, or it blew up, or it was attacked. I actually couldn't find any more news on what it could have been. I cannot imagine why a satellite would blow up. As far as I know, the satellites have like ion thrusters, which don't really blow up, or cold gas thrusters, which don't really blow up, and they don't really have moving parts. So I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe this was an attack or something. But can Boeing just not get a break? It's like bad news after bad news after bad news. Yeah. Do you have any comments on this?
I don't know if it was Boeing's fault, right? You know, I think everyone immediately wants to jump to, oh, Boeing, and this is just more bad publicity for them. But it could go back to the vision that Astroscale has, right? A prime customer for RKLB, which is space debris, space junk, and you never know what can collide. What's in orbit, right? You have so many different things flying in so many different orbits. Eventually, you're going to have some unintentional consequences of that, and so very much could have been that, or whatever Dave's putting in the chat. You know, it could be a whole mess of things. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happened, and if they have any sort of additional information, because I feel like if they had high pressure or something of the like, they would at least be able to to at least come out with a statement that it would be, right? Because they have measurement gauges everywhere these days. So,
but Dave, when you say pressurized propellant tanks, isn't it the cold grass thrusters? And aren't the cold grass thrusters like a mono? Yeah, if either is hit, it explodes. Yeah, okay. Because I was going to say that it's not like, you know, like oxygen and kerosene, that they, like, when there is fire and they mix together, then they blow up. Okay, and then the second question that I have is, it was in geostationary orbit, meaning it was like on the super high orbit where it's 36,000 kilometers away from Earth. And as far as I understand it, when people talk about space junk, it's always LEO. Like there's very few satellites in geostationary orbit, and the space is like exponentially bigger than in LEO. So it's very weird for me that it happened. But okay, it could have been the batteries. And
yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing a formal announcement by Boeing.
Yeah. Cool. We move on to the next one, and this one is super interesting. So if you thought Astra was going away quietly, you were wrong. So this company apparently is back from the dead. They have gotten a government contract valued at 44 million. Now, I specifically wanted to take this up in this segment because it's very misleading. I think maybe you have all read the headlines that they got a 44 million contract. But if you read the article, the actual guaranteed amount in the contract is $2 million, and everything is done milestone based. So meaning that if they don't deliver on the milestones, they don't get money. And 44 million is not a lot of money, especially when you're developing a rocket. And yes, so this contract was awarded. Let me see. So the company has previously discussed that Rocket 4 is intended to carry 600 kilograms to low Earth orbit as far back as 2022.
I'll just say, while you're searching, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it when I see it. That's all I'll say.
Okay, I hate that I cannot, like, I was reading the article and like I cannot highlight things so that it like stays there. Maybe I need to use an app for it. But basically the part that I'm not finding, I'm just going to say, is that this is a tactical responsive launch, meaning that they're developing that they can take the rocket in containers and shoot up the rocket from anywhere. And then when I was reading that, I was like, why do they need to develop this when their rockets can go sideways? They can just shoot the rocket. It can go sideways to where they want to launch it and then just up. That was mean. Okay, that was mean.
It was good. Good timing. Good timing on that one.
So, yeah. Obviously, the questions when I read this that I have, like, because Adam Spice have mentioned before that Astra specifically gave them pain because they were taking customers away from Rocket Lab for a much cheaper price, and then it was not helping the sales of Rocket Lab because the customers thought they had Rocket Lab as a viable option. So is this coming back now? Like, is it going to be hard for Rocket Lab to sell again for the 8.5 million average sales price because customers again have that option, or everybody is just in doubt about this and nobody really believes that this is going to happen?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll believe it when I see it. I mean, I think they might be going after a different market. I think they might be going after like a haste-like market rather than an orbital market, just based off of what you're kind of seeing here, like the responsive launch piece. But yeah, I don't necessarily know how much I trust it. They talked about, even before they went and they started going belly up, and they were still getting ready for the Astra 4 rocket. I kept hearing, oh, well, we're going to sell a bunch of engines and rocket engines to the military. And, you know, I was like, okay, well, maybe they'll start getting some revenue, right? Because what they were waiting on was the ability to launch the rockets, but they had a rocket engine factory that was able to churn out these rocket engines at a very quick pace. And so I was like, well, there's no capacity problem at Astra for the specific engine making. So maybe they'll start getting this revenue, and boom, the revenue never showed up, right? I mean, this company, you know, hopefully they can continue to, you know, I would love to see further competition, because that would just drive margins in the cadence and keep everybody on their toes. But I'm just not optimistic for these guys. And people asking specifically where they're getting the money. I mean, think about how many billions of dollars, not billions of dollars, but I mean, overall it was billions of dollars. I think Astra at some points was rated, you know, over $5 or so billion, which made Kemp, who owned a crap ton of it, you know, a lot of money. And so I think he's got a lot of money on the back skirts to be able to work with private investors and potentially buy things back at pennies on the dollar, which to me is super unethical, right? I mean, you're buying your own company back out private, you know, it's just like, to me, it's interesting. It's like, what was the incentive for him to, and I've seen people do this in the oil industry, by the way, right? They'll get hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars worth of debt, grow their company, and they'll just file bankruptcy. And then they'll be able to pick up a bunch of assets for cheap, and then basically end up with more than they had, because they still owned a crap ton of money. And in the meantime, as their company's growing and growing, they're selling off shares. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, the whole thing is just really shady to me. And, you know, I wish we weren't in this situation. I wish I didn't have to talk poorly about people, because I want to talk positively about space. I want to talk about the future. I want to talk about, so to reflect on what's happened in the past, kind of bothers me a little bit. But at the end of the day, I think people should maybe just take this with a grain of salt until they get number 4 in the air, because they've been talking about Astra 4 rocket for years.
Yeah, and to be honest, again, when I read the article, it's more like now that they have this contract, they can raise money from investors because they can show that there is demand. So I think that this contract in itself is nothing. It's not enough. It doesn't finance the company. It doesn't give them enough money to be able to take the rocket forward to the pad, but it does give them the ability to raise money again from investors, which I don't know who would invest in them at this point. And by the way, I just want to give a shout out again to Fool's Gold. You are the legend. It's crazy.
It's keeping the bacon on the table.
Exactly. Yeah. So we believe it when we see it. This is the Well, this was all the news that I had. Maybe this is a shorter Rocket Lab Weekly.
I was curious if anybody in the chat would like to come on and have any thoughts or questions about the organization. Obviously, Mr. Vince and I aren't necessarily the all-seeing eyes, but Vince, are you okay with
Sure.
that? Would you be willing?
Sure, I can put the link in the description. Or
in worst case,
chat.
Nobody wants to join. I get it. I smell. Oh, date night with hubby. Where are we going? Anyway.
Say that again.
So Lisa says she's going date night with hubby. I'm curious where they're going.
Cool. By the way, Fool's Gold is coming to Sweden in January, so it looks like we're gonna meet. So I'm very excited about that. It's the second person. I still haven't met you, Matt, but it's the.
I need to come and see you.
Yeah, or I need to come and see you. But I'm getting a kid very, very soon, so it's a bit hard for me to fly and move. But soon. Like in a year or so, it will be quite easy.
I'm confused by Johnny's question. At the end of every show, you should each rank your bullishness. Rocket Lab's been my most bullish company for quite some time.
Yeah, I understand his question, because I think he means like the short-term price action, and the thing is that
okay.
Yeah, the thing is, like, the bullishness also for me, it doesn't change. It's just like, for example, Palantir is a very good example that I feel that the price can get ahead of itself so much that I would not be buying the stock at that point, but it doesn't mean that I'm selling the stock or I'm not bullish in the future of the stock. On Rocket Lab, I think each stock has its own pros and cons. And like on Rocket Lab, I will tell you honestly, currently I don't know how to value the stock, because if I discount the satellite constellation part of Rocket Lab, I just look at Rocket Lab as a launch provider and as the space systems company. I think fair value is at $8 and we're at 12, so obviously we're 50% overvalued. But I don't think it's correct to give 0% to the constellation business. And if I model out the constellation business, even with pessimistic numbers, I get a fair value of like 20 to 25 even currently. And then that feels very high or very off from where the market is. So I'm just very happy. My average is $4 and the price goes where it may. So we have someone who joined. Hector.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Hello, guys.
What's going on, man? Welcome.
What's going on? What's your name and where do you come from? How much shares do you own?
I own 700 share of Rocket Lab. What else? And thanks to you guys for exposing it. I went through it. I was on X and then I saw some of the posts and I saw the balance sheet and what they have in the future. It looked really bright. So happy to follow you guys. Yeah.
Cool. Now, appreciate you coming on and sharing the good word with our friends on X. We just hope that we are able to shine some light on the company, the great things that they're doing over in New Zealand and in Virginia. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. One thing I want to mention, you guys mentioned Astra, right? I live in the Bay Area, and then I think it's like 5-minute drive from here, Astra, and I see their parking spot is like really empty. So
wow.
All right, we got some on the ground. You got to give us your X so we can message you for on the ground Astra coverage.
I will take a picture and then send it to you guys. This is my X. Yeah, I tried to keep it private, but yeah, that's
for sure. For sure. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you. So you said 700 shares. Have you held on for long, or are you more recent?
I started buying at few, like maybe like 10 share at 4, but then I started accumulating more at probably like 7. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah. I would take some picture and send it to you guys. Astra.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure, but they have Astra logo on their parking spot. So I need to check if it's the real Astra that you guys are talking about. But yeah.
Yeah, we'll see.
It probably is. It matches with the story.
Yeah, matches exactly. Well, so yeah, I guess you're in the Bay Area. Okay, that makes sense then. Okay, cool. That's awesome. How do you like it over there? Are things doing pretty well, or is it people starting to get pretty fired up about? What was I going to say? I heard they're doing like a cleanup thing over there in the Bay Area. How's that going?
Cleanup? What does that mean, cleanup?
There was like some homeless problems in the Bay Area and stuff like that. So I heard they're trying to clean it up a little bit.
Prioritizing SF. I don't live in San Francisco. I live like more in the Bay. Like I don't know.
Okay.
It's like all the way down.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank
you,
guys.
Hector.
Yeah. Look forward to having you in the chat next time.
All right. See you.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Cool. We got any others for our Rocket Lab weekly Q&A?
We had some Nick who jumped in, but then he jumped out. So I don't know if Nick, you want to try to come back in.
Maybe got the jitters.
Yeah. By the way, I really enjoy when we have the community, like, taking pictures and, like there's this guy who I think his Twitter is Starship, who has gone to Wallops before, taking pictures. I love it when Francisco and Now I'm having a brain freeze. Christopher Bell is, you know, showing us pictures. So yeah, it's amazing to see the parking lot of Astra, you know, getting it's like having a second set of eyes. Even though we suspect that is the case for the company. So yeah. New Blood, he just posted one. He's from New Zealand. I think, as far as I know, he's pretty close to the Auckland factory of New Zealand. I think so. Not Mahia, at least. Hope I'm not saying anything stupid. Anyways, if there's no more questions, I think we can end a little bit earlier than usual this week. I really enjoyed everyone being here. Thank you guys so much. It's an amazing community, and wish you guys green days on the markets, and see you next week.
Yeah, thank you for the 60 odd watching on my channel. I saw Vince had over 70, 80 on his, so much appreciated. Be sure, if you guys aren't following Vince and you're watching on my channel, be sure to go and check out the description and do that. And looking forward to it. It's just the beginning, guys. I hear people afraid to get in and afraid to buy, but I still think if you look 5-10 years down the road, this is still a company in its infancy. And what is it? I think it was only a $5 billion market cap, if I remember correctly. As of, let me just double check. Maybe it's close to 6, but it's still relatively cheap compared to where it could be in the near term future. So 5.5 billion. So
we have someone here from the chat.
Oh,
Hey,
I know this is
Mr.
a
Garcia.
convention.
yeah. Hey, Vince. Hey, Matt. How are you guys doing?
Good, brother. Good to see you. How's Arkansas?
Oh, man, it's great. We just
Yeah.
came back. We went to go visit Branson, South Missouri. Man,
Cool.
it's beautiful out there. So yeah, we had a great day. Went to the aquarium. Did mini golfing. Just had a nice day out with the family. Come back and then to watch the World Series, and then the Dodgers won with the walk-off grand slam. So
Dude, yeah, that's insane.
it's super exciting to see.
If anyone can stick it to the Yankees, that's all that matters, man. That's all that matters to me. So I'm rooting for you guys.
No, but yeah, I actually wanted to join, to kind of ask you guys, what your guys' strategy was when you first started learning about the company, like the way, like, did you kind of like dip your toes in buying the same amount of shares at a time? Did you buy whenever you could? Like, the way I'm approaching it is the same way I kind of approached Palantir last year. Is I don't know when the stock is going to start running up like crazy. Like, I mean, it's already ran up, right, from 4 to 11. So it's already a huge run up. It's kind of similar to Palantir going from 6 to 12. It's already doubled. Or from 6 to 18, where it's already gone up, 3x. I started buying Palantir when it was at $15 through $19, and I was buying aggressively. It had already run up by a lot. So in many eyes of OG investors, they would have been like, "Oh man, you're already late on Palantir. Like, what are you doing buying Palantir? You should have been buying at 6. The boat has left." The way I see Rocket Lab is I see them being, of course, a lot higher in the next 2 to 5 years, a lot higher. I don't know exactly when that spike, when that major run up is going to happen, but I'm just kind of adding as many shares as I can before that happens, and just be ready and just hold on with the shares. That's kind of the strategy that I'm doing. It's kind of around 10% of the portfolio right now, 5 to 10%.
Hell yeah, love that.
Sounds like a good strategy to me. I mean, for me, I did a lot of due diligence on Rocket Lab, and then I think in 2 buys, I filled up the position that I wanted to have. And then I started experimenting with options, and then I got assigned 2 times the portfolio amount that I wanted to have originally.
Okay.
And then which was an accident, and then I just refused to give back those shares. So like I ended up having more shares than I wanted, but my average is 4.5. So I'm not able to add more. That's me. But if I would have more money, I would probably still add at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Garcia, man, just keep doing what you're doing on X, dude. You're a fucking inspiration. I love it. So what I did basically, I'm just looking back at my share count. So March 2021, I bought 500 shares in my individual brokerage account, and then a couple weeks later, I bought. It looks like in July, August of 2021, I bought another 500 in my Roth.
Mhm.
And I always kind of taught myself, there was a couple space stocks that I was like, this is a space that makes me excited. This is a space. So it was like Virgin Galactic. I think I had Momentous Space at one point, and Rocket Lab. I think Rocket Lab was always my biggest bet. I did have some money in Virgin Galactic that I eventually did sell, I think in like 2022, 2023, and put it in a Rocket Lab. But basically I was just like, I'm taking a bet on space. And so I chose the 3 best companies. I think Rocket Lab was always kind of the one I liked the most because I knew its vision was eventually to go. Momentous was a buddy of mine told me about it. I wasn't really feeling it, but he told me to buy it. And I think that eventually went to 0, or I sold it early or something like that. And I don't think it's really going anywhere. Maybe it's having a comeback. But my thought process around Rocket Lab was as things get de-risked, I'll continue to add money. And so that's what I did. So throughout 2022, I added a little bit more. Here I'm looking at like mid 2022, December 2022, added probably another 150 shares or so in the Roth, which is kind of baby money. But here I'm looking at in the individual brokerage account in 2022, added like another, looks like another 1,000 shares or so throughout 2022. Yeah, maybe a little bit more, maybe like another 1,500 shares. And then I would say 2023 is when I started adding a little bit more, 2,000 shares here, 2,500 shares there. And that was after I was just like, these guys actually are launching some shit into space. Because I think by the time it was 2022, they had launched maybe 17 times total. Because they started launching in 2017. And then, I think they've had grown themselves being from 3 launches in 2018, 5. Then I think they've kind of been at this cadence now for quite some time, slowly just inching further and further along. So the fact that I think by 2023 they started getting into the 30, 40 launch cadence for me was just like, okay, these guys know what they're doing, right? And they're still on track from what I understood about Neutron, and then it really, once I started seeing more about Neutron and actually the development of it, and then starting to test it and de-risk that, that's when I started pulling out the big stops. So like, like 350 shares at a time back in mid-June 2024, August 2024, 2,300 a month later, 1,200 shares, literally 1,200 shares in October, literally the 21st? So 4 or 5 days ago. And then that was in my Roth. So I'm seeing here, 5,000 shares or so in late 2023, 1,500 shares in early 2024, 2,050 shares on February 6th of 2024 at $4.09. I think I had sold something small. So like $1,000 buy. It wasn't even like a round number for shares. It was just $1,000. So it was like 256 and then 0.1 shares. That was April. A couple weeks later, another $200. May, for my birthday, I bought 2,200 shares, and the rest is kind of history at this point. And now I've started to like any money that Fool's Gold in them, and any YouTube money I get that isn't from Cashflow Chronicles, but strictly just from the Map Money channel, I'm going to put directly towards Rocket Lab at the moment because it's my number one position. But you can see how the buys have gone from 500 shares in the beginning to thousands of shares to now like, several thousand shares within a couple months. So that's
so you guys had like very different ways of adding, whereas like you did it in a long consistent way. Vince, he shot like 4 fat bullets and he was like boom 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 and filled up his allocation. Like
seems like what he does with his kids too.
I was this Turkish guy at the Olympics, the one who just stand without the glasses, just stood there and
like 25%, 50, 75, 100%. Yeah, because right now I would say I'm at 50% of where I want to be at. Like I have around 1,500 shares right now.
Oh yeah, that's
Like I
great,
think
man.
I want to end up at three to 5,000 shares, and at least as a goal, like as an aggressive goal to get there and just hold on, because I mean of course we're gonna have our ups and downs, and I'm just looking forward to hearing, what is it, Neutron, their new rocket, any updates that we get. I mean, if we get even any news that they might even be ahead of schedule, or like anything like a surprise to the, in a positive way, I think it's going to move the stock like in a significant way. They start pricing in all these things, and one thing that I've been thinking about is the interest rates too. Like, do you guys think interest rates will have an effect? Like because I'm thinking that they're going to cut interest rates in a couple of days again, and they might continue this, you know, that decreasing the interest rates with the Jerome Powell. Like, do you guys think it'll affect Rocket Lab as much as other, medium, small caps?
Go ahead, Vince. I'll let you.
No, definitely. I think that, I think this recent run up has to do with, I think, the risk regarding Neutron going out because of the hot fire test being done. Like I was actually thinking like you that the run up. I even sold covered calls at $8, which I really hate that I did, but I can still get out of them because my logic was that okay. They did the hot fire, but the market will think that, okay, until they see Neutron and Neutron contracts, we're not really going to move with the stock. And I was wrong, because I think that the way the market was thinking is the fact that they did the hot fire, that was like now they have all the pieces of the rocket, and now they just need to put it together and fly it. And I think that took out a lot of risk. The interest rates also is taking a lot of risk out of the stock. So my question is, like, I don't know how much of it is already priced in.
Yeah, and my theory, like, I don't know what you guys think about this, but do you guys remember back back when they first started hiking interest rates, like, a couple years back? I remember people were underestimating how bad stocks would get hit. On Wall Street Bets, online, people are like, "Oh, it's all priced in. Stocks will do well," because everybody already knows the interest rates are going to go up. My theory is that we're going to see the opposite, where people think it's all priced in, but then the moment they start consistently cutting rates back to like maybe 2.5%, or wherever they end up, I think we're going to see that big boost, to stocks, where I think we're going to see a lot of money go into stocks more than people expect. Like, I think it's just going to be the other side of that coin, where it's underestimated.
Yeah.
Like
I do think we're going to be in a space, not today, not tomorrow, but within 12 to 18 months, where there will be the opportunity when the company becomes profitable, where they take on traditional debt, right? And it might start small, but my hope is that eventually, when people start to recognize that these guys are here to play, they're actually making some revenue from this and EBITDA from this, that they could take on a decent amount of debt, and I don't necessarily want that per se. I'd love to fund things a little bit more organically rather than having to go to market to be able to get. But at the same time, when you're talking about some of the ambitions that these guys are looking for and getting to, you might have to take on a couple $100 million worth of debt to be able to help fund those things up front. And I think one of the key things that might be better for them is being a prime contractor for some of these big constellations that they're building, because then that means they're the kind of the orchestrator of how things are done, and they're able to bill and things at pace versus waiting for delivery before they get paid, which is some of the cases why some of the working capital in previous quarters has been pretty tough. So I'd be excited to see what happens, and hopefully, just for my own greediness as well, I hope interest rates do get cut in November, December as well, because man, I've been a little bit flabbergasted. The 10-year going back above 4.1%, even up to close to 4.2% lately. It's just a bummer for mortgage rates, and I know it's congrats to anybody that was able to kind of either refinance some debt or do anything of the like, because it seems like it's going to be taking longer than expected. But I did want to give a shout out to Uncle Clay's. I mean, he did reach out to me on X, and congratulations on 150K, man. I mean, you can thank me and Vince all you want, but at the end of the day, you're the one with the cojones to actually purchase the stock, right? And that means you either had a lot of conviction, or hell, maybe you just gambled. Maybe you got the kind of money to gamble and make 150K, but you probably had a lot of forethought and due diligence that you put into that. And you might be able to thank me and Vince, but at the same time, you should thank yourself, because you're the one that took the leap and made the trade. So congratulations on that, and appreciate the super chat.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah, it is 150K up. That's super nice. By the way, Garcia, I want to say that it could be that on Q3 earnings we're going to get a dip. I don't know if you caught that in the beginning of the show, that it doesn't look like the Electron launches. They're going
right.
to be, yeah. And in the Q3 earnings, they're going to give guidance for Q4. And if you really know the company inside out, that Neutron is not so relevant for the business. It's 30% of their income only. Neutron is coming. It's going to have much more revenue. So that might be a good buying opportunity when they report it, because it might dip on the earnings.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I mean, last year, so they established this kind of last year. So I don't know if they continue this tradition, but because it's the last earnings report before year end, and I don't mean obviously there's the full year report that comes out in February timeframe, but in terms of the actual time frame when we actually get the earnings report is in November timeframe. They give, at least last year, they gave a manifest for what's to look forward to in 2024. Hopefully this year they'll give us the manifest for what it looks like in 2025. Man, do I hope that it's above 20 some launches like they had for 2022, or sorry, for 2024. They had 2022, and I hope that they continue to persist and get to the place where we're actually able to break through that 20 mark, because I would love to see 2 a month, because based off of what Sir Peter Beck had said in the interview with Maddie, actually, was he wants to get to, in the medium term, this isn't necessarily the aspirational term. I think when he thinks aspirational, I think he probably assumes he's going to be up there with the Falcon 9 cadence, right? But he wants to do, in the short to medium term, 2 launches a month for the Neutron. So about $110 million a month in sort of revenue. And so in order to get there, I mean, you need to get to 24, and we haven't gotten to 24 even on Electron yet. So if you think about it in that perspective, how long is it going to take us to get there? 6 to 7 years, because it's taken about that time for the Electron to get there in 6 to 7 years. Granted, Electron is probably going to move a lot of things for them, in terms of the experience and everything like. So maybe they'll shave off a year here or there. But either way, I mean, we're still several years away from a launch cadence of 24, even for potentially Electron. Who knows what that means for Neutron? So I'm still optimistic, though, that they'll be able to figure it out. The customer count's going to be there. I hope that the customers are there for the medium launch, because they're obviously there for Falcon 9, right? So my hope is we continue to do well.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I appreciate you guys for having me on, answering some questions and stuff, because I'm relatively new to to investing in Rocket Lab, so I do have a lot of research to continue doing, because the conviction, like you said, Matt, we're the ones buying, we're the ones taking the responsibility. So it is important that we have the conviction ourselves to hold or sell if we personally find the need to, or see that, because we're all going to be
100%.
buying and selling at different moments in our life. We're not going to be pressing the button at the same time, at the exact same second.
Yeah, and we're on a different timeline of our investment thesis, right? I mean, I'm 33, so I'm fortunate to have some time ahead of me, but somebody here in the chat might be in their 50s or 60s. They might not be able to take on that risk. They might say, hey, I was fortunate enough to get that double from $5, $5.50 to 11 or 12 bucks. I'm taking my money and running and just putting it into, a nice dividend paying stock. Yeah. And I wouldn't fault somebody for that as well. It really just depends on what somebody's risk tolerance is. And if somebody says, I can't tolerate in my portfolio the volatility of this, it's already grown to 30% of the portfolio, and that's not okay with me. I'd rather have it down at closer to 10 to 15. I get it, right? So it's really up to each individual. For me, it's scary, but I'm willing as a de-risk. The same thing with Palantir, right? When I thought it was a speculative sort of thing and it wasn't making money yet, and it was, back in 2021, 2022, it was the same sort of thing. Now Palantir, I'm just going to let it run, right, and do its thing, because I'm not worried about it going bankrupt. And I'm just going to keep on top of it on a quarterly basis. And if the thesis change, right, is there, and for some reason something drastically changes with the organization, maybe I'll take my money and run. But in the meantime, it's kind of just like on coast mode for that. Versus Rocket Lab, it's kind of the opposite. I'm still trying to de-risk it over time, and eventually I feel like Rocket Lab within 10 to 12 months, within 12 to 18 months is going to be in that same location where it's profitable. It's now getting to its own thing, and really, unless something drastic swan-like event happens with the organization, it's going to be on coast mode, and I don't really have to worry about it anymore. So anyway, yes, everybody should do their own due diligence and make sure, just because it's right for me. I'm 33. I have money to lose in that respect. It's, an amount of money that I'd be willing to go belly up. It's like 120,000 at this point, in terms of like capital that I've invested, not the whole portfolio size for that. I think it's over 200 or some, maybe getting close to 250 grand that I have invested, in terms of current value for it. So, you kind of have to do what's right for you. Even 5 shares might be too much for somebody. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Cool, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the audience. And I will see everyone next week on Rocket Lab Weekly.
Thanks for stopping by, Garcia. Good to see you, brother.
Of course. Thank you for having me, guys.
Good to see you guys. Yeah.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
Bye, guys.